Dear McDonald's, your breakfast menu? Fire. 10s across the board. I could be happy with anything, even though I ordered the same thing every time. Thanks for not judging me. I'll try something new next time. Maybe.
Score a 2 for $5 deal on a sausage McMuffin with egg and more. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
In state and local government, tech upgrades aren't optional. They're essential. Whether it's improving digital services, protecting public data, or modernizing outdated systems, the demand for skilled IT professionals has never been higher. CBT Nuggets helps you stay ahead with affordable, on-demand IT training that's built for your schedule. Our short, practical videos and hands-on virtual labs make it easy to build real-world skills in networking, cybersecurity, cloud technologies, and more. You don't need expensive hardware or complicated setups, just a browser and the motivation to grow. Whether you're an IT admin, public service tech, or new to the field, CBT Nuggets gives you the tools to better support your team and your community. And with new content added regularly, there's always something relevant to learn. Join thousands of learners who are upgrading their skills and advancing their careers. Start your 7-day free trial today at cbtnuggets.com. Because smarter tech skills don't just help you, they help your whole community succeed.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
We are fresh off of Mother's Day. It's a time where we put that maternal figure in the spotlight and say, thank you. But what does being a mom really mean these days? You often hear stay-at-home mom versus working mom, but do those definitive categories truly exist the way they used to? And is it time we redefine what parenthood and success mean? I'm Melanie Ng, and in this episode of The Big Story, I'm joined by thought leader, author, and speaker Neha Ruch. Neha is on a mission to change the narrative and is out with her first book, The Power Pause. I am so excited to have this conversation. Welcome to the show, Neha.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start with some background about you. Your life sort of followed that traditional pattern of the going to school and working in the corporate world, and then something changed. So take us back to 2017.
Sure. So it was actually 2016, New Year's Day 2016, when I welcomed my first son, Bodhi. And up until that point, I, like so many of us, had clocked in my hours and I'd derived a tremendous amount of self-worth and pride and belonging from what I did for paper. So I had built a career in brand marketing. I'd just finished up Stanford Business School a couple of years before. I had what on paper was my dream job that came with a nice fancy title. And then I had my son and I was rocking with him a few months in thinking, yes, I'm sleep deprived. Yes, it's 3 a.m. and I've reached the ends of the internet and there's milk everywhere. And I feel like I'm learning again. I had sort of felt dulled a bit in my work life for a bit. I felt at peace in my own skin, which I think I'd been looking for a long time. And I chose to downshift my career. I wanted more time with him. And I think that's important to call out because I didn't make that choice because I thought it was better for him. I really did it because I wanted that for myself for that season. And as soon as I did that, I started hearing the pushback.
Was this the pushback from your peers? Was it pushback from family? Was it pushback from corporate America? Who was that from?
I think it really spanned generations. It was from everyone, from my in-laws and parents to my husband to my friends, right? It was everyone, not out of a place of malintent, but as a place of reconciling who they thought I was with the perception of a stay-at-home mother. And so it really made me scratch my head as to where these perceptions were coming from, right? Like I was hearing, are you going to be bored all day? Are you giving up? Are you wasting your education? And I think all of it really brought to light that we have left behind any ambitious woman who's choosing to take her foot off the gas from a career perspective, really back in the 1950s with a very shut-in, stagnant caricature. I, for one, was meeting women like you and so many other women who'd clocked in a decade in their career plus. had really equitable modern relationships with their partners. They weren't planning on serving them cocktails at the end of the day. They were exploring freelance contracts, creative opportunities to stay connected, and none of it matched the stereotypes I was being handed.
So I'm going to be very honest with our listeners. I've been wanting to speak with you for some time. So my life very much parallels your path. In 2022, I had this career as a news anchor on the #1 morning show in Canada. And I remember saying to myself, wait a second. And I made this decision during the pandemic. I think for a lot of people, it also shifted, where you prioritized your time, your talent, what mattered to you. And so that's the context there. But I remember thinking, am I making the right move? Because I'm going to step back from my career for my family, for my son, because I started missing things. I was out the door at, say, 3:30 in the morning. I was missing walks to school. I was, tired, helping him with homework because I just didn't have the patience level anymore. And I wasn't the parent I knew I wanted to be. But I also balanced, as you said, Neha, I'm going to be judged for stepping away and not having that plan B ready to go. And what are you going to do? And I remember coming across your Instagram, the algorithms, they can be horrible, but they can also be bang on. And I found you at Mother Untitled, and it was just everything that you said about that change in narrative really stuck with me, because success is different for different people. And often we see that streamline. What is success? It's being I'm putting this in quotations for our listeners, the working mom, where they rush out the door, they do this, that, and the other thing, and then they make dinner, but it doesn't have to be that way. And so for me, personally, Neha, with your messaging, I have found success in being able to pick up my son after I record this podcast from school and to go to his baseball game, because I define that as success while I'm balancing this part-time career that I'm in right now. I'm sure you're getting a lot of feedback within the community saying, hey, this is me. I feel the exact same way. You're just saying these words out loud. Am I right?
You are. And I think that is the beauty of language, right? And I think that was why I felt so compelled to put language and reframes and scripts out into the world, because we had not re-examined language in a long time, right? And by that, I mean, when you poll the American public, and we commissioned a survey called the American Mothers on Pause for research for the book, but also just to have a fresh look at the modern woman who was shifting her career. And if you poll the American public as to their perception of the stay-at-home mother, they will still say June Cleaver. And that's a character left over from the 1950s. If you ask who they think of as the working mother, they will say Michelle Obama, Sheryl Sandberg, and Beyonce. Like, that power chasm is just too large, and it doesn't match either reality, right? And what we hadn't done was take a fresh look at, well, how has the workforce changed? By the way, over 25, 35, 40 years, but especially in the last 3-5 years since the pandemic and the Great Reexamination, right? And when you look at all those factors, you realize the second set of data that is really interesting, which is 1 in 3 women working out of the home currently will pause their careers in the next 2 years. 1 in 2 will downshift their careers, and 90% of the women who are currently on a pause will return, which means we're actually very evolving and ever shifting. And the sort of black and white ideas of stay-at-home and working mother do very little besides trap us in these sort of finite labels and leave us trying to look for more options. And that's really what the Power Pause is to offer women another valid option by offering language that speaks to their ambition, that speaks to the fact that they are still growing, that they are still successful, that they are still productive, and that they still have a lot of possibility, even in slow career seasons.
I think for some women, I don't want to speak for all, but for some, they maybe feel like others might weaponize this privilege of stepping back and being like, well, you have this luxury to step back. How lucky are you to be able to do that? Meanwhile, I have to manage X, Y, and Z in order to make ends meet. The judgment that you spoke about earlier, I think there are so many levels of that judgment. I know I felt that too. And whenever I explained myself to people that I was stepping back, I felt guilty. And what do you make of that language or that thought process of women who want to do it and they understand that this will be success for them, this will work for their family unit, but they're afraid of that kind of judgment?
Well, first of all, I want to correct you just ever so slightly when you say stepping back. That's what we've been conditioned to say, right? Which is as opposed to taking a shift to see what comes and trusting what comes next, right? And I think when we are moving, every decision leads us to the next and leads us to the next version. And I think we have this sort of very linear view on our careers that has changed. I do think the judgment, however, still remains. And the judgment often comes from people trying to make sense of their own choices, right? And for too long, and it's why I started this conversation explaining that I made the choice for me. For so long, we have sort of dug our heels in and said, well, I made this choice because I want to create secure attachment with my child. And the other side said, well, I'm making this choice to model ambition for my child. And the reality is that what we've learned from research is our careers impact our children. So they have equally ambitious, equally happy and healthy outcomes as long as they have a present parent. So once we really own choices for what they are, which is choices that are unique choices that are best for you and your family, then we can sort of open up and have real conversation. But I think this other side is that the language around luxury, right? And I think I think when we have deemed one side a luxury, we associate it with needing less support or being of less value. And that's where we get in like slippery slope of undervaluing and caregiving, right? And I think where we are better served is to recognize the other numbers, from the same data set, we saw that 60% of American mothers cite financial considerations in pausing. 1 in 3 feel forced to pause because of the cost of childcare. And that isn't to say that the luxury is then to work out of the home, as many women can't, forego their income. It's to say that the privilege is to get to choose, but all women are doing work of value. All women deserve support. And what we really need is ways in which to respect all those different versions of work so women can dial up and dial down with less shame.
Dear McDonald's, your breakfast menu? Fire. 10s across the board. I could be happy with anything, even though I ordered the same thing every time. Thanks for not judging me. I'll try something new next time. Maybe.
Score a 2 for $5 deal on a sausage McMuffin with egg and more. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Feel like you're stuck in career limbo? Clock in, clock out, repeat. No growth, no new opportunities. It's time to break out and break into tech. With CBT Nuggets, you can start building the IT skills that companies are hiring for right now. We make training fast, simple, and practical. From networking to cybersecurity, you'll get short, easy-to-watch videos and hands-on virtual labs so you can build real-world skills without expensive gear or complicated setups. For just $59 a month, you get unlimited access to our full training library. That includes certifications, skill-based learning, and practice exams, a $100 value included free. Learn anytime, anywhere, and get job ready on your terms. Thousands have used CBT Nuggets to launch new careers, and you can too. Right now, CBT Nuggets is offering a free trial. Easily find the training you need and test it out with no commitment. Start your 7-day free trial now at cbtnuggets.com. Don't wait. A better job is just a few clicks away.
If you were to look at, if you were to go back in time and say, wow, by the way, Neha, in 2025, you're going to have this incredible book. You're going to make the rounds. You're going to go on this book tour and you're going to be on all these talk shows like Drew Barrymore and so on and so on. Could you imagine this space that you are in now? Would say 2016 Neha Ruch be like, whoa, is that my future? It really feels like you've taken what has been such a personal journey for you and you've made it one that is for us.
I actually often, especially when I was on the tour, kept doing this thing where I would have the on this day iPhone feature up on my screen to remind me where I was 6-9 years ago. Because I'll tell you what I think remained consistent from 2016, which was the thesis. I really did feel strongly that my reality did not match the language I was being handed down. And I do think I had to live the journey, every chapter, right, of following the arc of reconciling my ambition, reconciling that icky feeling of feeling financially dependent, and having to come up with the language of, no, wait a second, I'm providing value. How do we advocate for that? Or, finding ways to feel less stuck and motivate myself to feel like I was moving forward. And then ultimately to wake up one day and be like, wait a second, I do have a network and I have found interest. And how do I package that all together? That really did have to come from the lived experience. But there was a lot of messy years. And I will just point out that I think those made and shaped the book in some way, right? Because I remember in 2019 writing an outline for this book because I was looking around and there was a guide I'd found about returning to the workforce. And I was like, wait a second, well, why isn't there a guide for how I can walk through this chapter feeling confident and fulfilled and ultimately go, return to work? And yet the timing would have never worked. Like timing is everything. The culture was ready. My family was ready when I did ultimately, put forth a proposal and get a book deal. But I think what's important to note is during those seasons where I felt like, oh, this is such a big idea, but I can't grow it at that capacity. Like I'm looking around and I'm seeing all these big women in work foundations and organizations and movements. And I know this one needs that voice and that scale. It was very important to keep coming back to, well, what will I regret in 5 years? When I look back, what will I have wanted to do? And so I had to actively choose every year, every season, like this is what I accept I can do for right now. This is what I embrace I get, and this is what I'm going to let go and sort of trust in the long game. But that was an exercise I did have to do over and over again. And I give myself credit for moving the goal forward in the smallest of ways, even when it wasn't big and impressive.
Let me ask you this. It's twofold. I want to ask about reception from those in your community, but also to the book, but also reception from your family. So let's start with the book, which has been doing so well. I know you've been meeting with, people who've been following you for some time and readers. And has anything stood out to you where someone has come up to you and said something that you're like, wow, I didn't think that I had made that kind of impact?
Yeah. This mother-daughter pair came up in Chicago. Several people brought letters, which I just thought was the most beautiful thing. But this was a mother and daughter who brought letters. And the mother is probably like early 60s and the daughter was 30-something. And to have been able to give the woman from a generation prior a fresh way to look back on her time, I thought was really profound. To sort of reconstruct her views so that she could then support her daughter in a new way. I also think it restored my faith that we all are open. We remain open to new ways to think and new ways to help and new ways to support the next generation. I think that one stayed with me the most.
Have you received any feedback? And I know we're speaking about this specifically for women, but a lot of this can, of course, apply to men, depending on situations too. Have you received any interesting comments from men? I'm curious.
I have received great feedback from women whose husbands are currently out. I have not seen too many men, and those rooms have been pretty full on the tour. And I have not seen a profound number of men who show up in these spaces. And I think that's where women, we have a true luxury, and I can use the word in this way, of having that emotional capacity and less stigma in connecting in these spaces and having these conversations. That said, the 1 in 5 stay-at-home parents or 1 in 5 parents on a career path are dads. And that number is ticking upward. And so I think what is interesting to note is it's still a nuanced conversation, right? Because for men, they have a very different experience of stigma. The stigma surrounding them parting with paid work come with an expectation of being the bright, cultural and societal norms. Whereas for us, it's sort of self-inflicted pressure around ambition and feminism. Where I think we have it harder in some ways is when we're getting our footing in a career pause. Oftentimes what will happen is we think, well, we're paused our paid work. Now we have to sort of overperform to prove our worth and capacity in the home. Whereas men in sort of anecdotal research will sort of say like, I'm just here and that's amazing. Like that's great. And so the bar is different, right? So their sort of presence is not defined by how involved they are in the PTA or if they bake their cookies or bought their cookies or if they like what snacks they pack their kids. It's defined by their presence. And so they naturally have a little bit of a little bit more ease as they navigate their day to day.
Now, this has been your path for X amount of years. I'm curious to see what your family has said to you. Your kids, they know this version of you, which is incredible. Have they ever said anything to you, ask you some interesting questions or said something to you that stood out?
I think it's less what they said and how they showed up for that tour, right? Like the most astounding thing was when they met me and I kept kind of bare minimum, like as much as they could sort of retain and understand. I talked about like doing this work because it helped other mommies love time with their kids and love being with their kids and feel more confident during certain seasons. But I never explicitly talked about what the tour would entail. And the day I left for sort of the back-to-back piece of the tour, they both came to me with their books to have me sign. And I thought that was, it was just profound for them to realize that they had a piece in it. And I think when I get to the end of the book, and you'll hear it if you ever listen to the audiobook, I did sort of I really had a moment that was heavy thinking about why I do this. And I do it really because I hope when my daughter grows up and someone asks if I was a stay-at-home or working mother, she will have no idea what those words mean. And I've noticed that language has never entered their vernacular. They sometimes, they're trying to pick up the nuances of different parents in their work, but they seem so innocent in that right now, and I hope to keep it that way.
So I think this is the perfect place to end it. Neha Ruch, The Power Pause is out now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Melanie.
And that was The Big Story. As always, you can send us feedback on this episode or any other episode by emailing us at hello@thebigstorypodcast.ca. You can find us on the Seeker app or on all your favorite podcast players. You can rate, you can review, you can follow, and definitely share. I'm Melanie Ng. Thank you so much for listening.
Dear McDonald's, your breakfast menu? Fire. 10s across the board. I could be happy with anything, even though I ordered the same thing every time. Thanks for not judging me. I'll try something new next time. Maybe.
Score a 2 for $5 deal on a sausage McMuffin with egg and more. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
In state and local government, tech upgrades aren't optional, they're essential. Whether it's improving digital services, protecting public data, or modernizing outdated systems, the demand for skilled IT professionals has never been higher. CBT Nuggets helps you stay ahead with affordable, on-demand IT training that's built for your schedule. Our short, practical videos and hands-on virtual labs make it easy to build real-world skills in networking, cybersecurity, cloud technologies, and more. You don't need expensive hardware or complicated setups. Just a browser and the motivation to grow. Whether you're an IT admin, public service tech, or new to the field, CBT Nuggets gives you the tools to better support your team and your community. And with new content added regularly, there's always something relevant to learn. Join thousands of learners who are upgrading their skills and advancing their careers. Start your 7-day free trial today at cbtnuggets.com. Because smarter tech skills don't just help you, they help your whole community succeed.